How's everybody doing?
Hello. Hello. Good morning.
I'm not Greg.
Only ladies today.
I think Greg has an event. I think.
Yes, something with the math organization where he is an
Mhm.
officer. I can't remember, but he said it was likely that he was going to have to be doing things for them. So
Doing math.
Mhm.
And I will say that I might be filling in for Greg, but there is zero math coming out of his brain today. So you're tuning in for math. Sorry. So how are you doing this morning?
Great.
good, good.
We're getting a little warmer down in Atlanta,
Mhm.
and Vicky was telling us she's sending summer to us.
Yes. Yes. I'm sending summer your way. It's already getting dark earlier. It's getting cold by the morning. Yeah.
So we will
So
take.
I'll let you have the sun.
Thank you so much. We need it. And how's everybody doing out there in chat? Let us know how you're doing. We've got a couple people who already have. Hi, Ann. Ann tells us already that it's a sunny 21 -6. So warming up. Oh, about 8 inches of snow falling since last Wednesday. I don't comprehend snow down here. I wish we did, but we don't. Oh, Haplin, hi. I haven't seen you in a long time. I haven't talked to you in a long time. How are you doing this morning? And Murray from Canada. I believe, Murray, you got a lot of snow. So Ontario, 15 degrees. I think Greg was telling us they were really getting socked in last week. So they're probably feeling it a lot now. Dee from Augusta, just over my shoulder here where I'm at. Good morning, Augusta. And let's see. Oh, Judy. Hi, Judy. I think Judy's going to be at Roots Tech as well.
Oh,
so if you're going to Roots Tech,
nice.
you can see Judy there.
Awesome.
And let's see. Veg Beauty. During the hangouts, I always forget your first name. So you're
Tia.
Tia.
That's Tia.
Yeah.
No lakes here, but going for a Red Bull effect. I think I'm going for tea. What are you guys drinking today?
Tea.
I just have water.
I have tea, water, and juice.
And it all. And
did you know that Mohavelin? I just read Mohavelin. Mohavelin's name is Lynette. I guess I read it. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And Victor. I have
Victor.
And let's see who else we know. Oh, Patricia. Hi, Patricia from Kentucky. I know Patricia. And Margaret as well. Appalachians. So welcome.
Biscuit.
Biscuits. I love that. Thank you, Vicki. In class.
Now that I'm an Appalachian too.
Yeah, I know.
You made me an Appalachian.
We hooked you up. That's true.
You connected me. Yeah.
I gave a challenge during the roundup, and the Appalachians went to work, and I was so shocked. They did it in I think 30 minutes or so. So that was pretty cool. Hi, class from Interlocking. Let's see who else we have going on here. This is like because they're talking about some of the snow that they have in the weather as well. It's hard to imagine all the snow. Oh, and Rick. Hello, Rick from Ontario, formerly of Australia.
Oh.
And Mel. Hi, Mel. How are you doing this morning? And Joku, how are you doing? We've got, and Tamara, how are you, Tamara? Cold Cleveland. And I can tell you that Tamara had a little bit of issues with her internet this week, so she didn't have as much WikiTree time. So that was devastating. That was kind of tough out there. But when you have those storms, that's kind of what happens. And hi, Irish John. How are you? And Chris is from Ohio. I think, Chris, you had a lot of snow as well going on. And watching Wales, Ireland play Wales in rugby. So now, John, I need to know which one are you rooting for? Because I call him Irish John, but he does a tremendous amount of research for me for Wales. In Wales. So I'm curious to see which one he's going to vote on. Hi, Mary. How are you doing? And Max is she still around? She's still on WikiTree. We're going to see her at Roots, as a matter of fact. She's just taking a break as well, kind of stepping back from the LiveCasts. When you do a lot of LiveCasts, and also, I imagine Betsy and Vicky, it ties up your Saturdays. Sometimes your schedule changes. Oh, we got a DNA match
for yolk. Yes,
triangulation. That is awesome.
I know.
That is really, really awesome.
Wow.
Good. Congratulations.
And hi, Hillary. I know that you're sitting in Wales. And Susie as well. Hi, how are you doing? And let's see who else we got. Chris Ferriol sitting. And how much snow do you have, Chris? And if he tells me his father, I think it's his father, makes excellent eggplant parmesan. So he always tells me that, and I get jealous. Chris, Greg is mathing today.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Memorizing.
He will be back, definitely. I like everybody's got something to drink. Hi, Stephanie. How are you doing? And Stephanie is going to be cheering for Wales over Ireland, and John is going to be cheering for Ireland. On the rugby. So we've got it going for both of them. Okay, and then that gives us. And Hillary, I'm so glad that you mentioned this. That loads of DNA matches that I'm working on and confirming, because we have a couple of us have been blogging since the beginning of the year. Chris Ferriol kind of got us started in blogging. And anyway, the Four Self has kind of got us involved in blogging. A lot of us have been blogging about DNA for the past 2 weeks. So that's kind of handy as well. So welcome. And hi, Terry from Ohio as well. And Willa Dean, how are you doing? The snow is melting. It's melted. That's pretty good. Mary. Oh, South Dakota. So I would think that this would be maybe one of the coldest places.
Wow.
35 degrees. So minus 25 to 35.
What a swing.
That's a heat wave.
Yes. Wow.
And then down in Australia, we've got humidity and rain and heat. So we've got the summer. Okay. Well, welcome everybody.
Yeah, great to see everyone, and welcome as well to those who are watching after. So
yes, we have a great audience. 37.
Nice. Well, we have some catch up to do because we haven't looked at the photos in a couple of weeks and the ancestors. And I don't know about you, but February just felt like a blur to me.
It does.
It's a short month anyway, but between festivals and flus and, that's, I just feel like, where did it go? All of a sudden we're in the 20, and we're looking at March.
Because we have what? Just about, we have less. 1 week from today will be March. Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
it's the last chance to see the pictures from
yes,
February.
yeah, and we have quite a few to look at and ancestors to celebrate. But let's start with the question of the week, which I know this is not the first time that we've had this as a question of the week, but it was the first time that I was aware of it, and so I thought, oh, this is pretty cool. If your ancestors had social media, what do you think they would post? With Sandy, Vicky,
interesting.
Yeah. Did you?
I had a lot of politicians, journalists, writers. So I guess they would have strong opinions about what was happening around the country.
Sure.
And my ancestors in Germany, they baked. They had bakery. So I'm sure they would post about their breads, their kind of breads, and their store. Yeah, that's it.
I thought a cool
Guess.
little twist on this question would be, and what platform do you think they would have preferred? You
Oh,
know, like, are
oh,
they very visual? Would they have gone with Instagram, or, would they Facebook
Mm.
or X, or,
that is a very good question. I know my dad would have been prolific. He would have been prolific on Facebook, and he would have been one of those ones who threw his mouse when somebody said something he didn't like.
oh
You
boy.
probably do that, and then say a couple, certain curse words we say in Appalachia. He say it over there, and then he'd move on. But he would definitely not be visual. I think he'd be text. So that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Yes, totally. Yeah, my ancestors would have maybe have blogged
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
like speeches and stuff, and maybe X for the
Yeah.
politics.
yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
and for the bakers in Germany, maybe Instagram,
Uh-huh.
hmm Facebook.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, that would be nice.
Really a
Yeah.
fascinating question. So we had 22 answers. We'll just take a quick look. But I read them all this morning, and they were fun. They were a fun read. This Christine Adams says, "Well, would it be family scandals or the price of horses in Missouri?
Yeah.
For my ancestors, it could be those two things are related." And she imagines that someone in Missouri would most likely post something like, "I saw Joe at Amanda's place again when he brought those horses up from Texas. Better not tell Eva about the fun in Missouri. LOL, that boy of Amanda sure does look like Joe." Oh, goodness.
Okay, now she's giving me a challenge. Now I want everybody to write something in their ancestors' words.
Star Klein thought, it would depend. Mothers and grandmothers and aunts would be posting photos of their children, talking about their grandchildren and achievements, and posting recipes. But one great aunt, I'm sure, would be posting, "I can't believe X did XXX yesterday," and offering her opinions on a wide range of topics. And this great aunt was a nurse. So she would also be complaining about all the ads on TV for medicines and sharing the natural and homemade remedies she learned in nursing school in 1915. Tim Partridge has a lot of ag labs, agricultural laborers, and he would bet that they would be sharing news about available farm jobs, and somehow doubt that they would broadcast gossip publicly because of the risk to reputations. Which I can see people, as they do today, wanting to be private. Paula said, "Mine wouldn't be posting anything because there would be no reception in the mountains where they lived." Yeah, that's a good point. Now, Danny Eagleton gave us this link, and I'll flip over to it. And so as I started reading historical newspapers, I realized, well, this was their social media. There really was not a lot of privacy on comings and goings. Who was visiting whom, and what they were doing, shooting, and who was in the travel party, how long were they gone for. So this was really fun to see. So it's linked in Danny's response.
That's true. My aunt used to write for her little community in the, county newspaper, and
Yeah.
they had all these ladies that wrote, and I remember her calling, "Okay, what happened today at your house? If she saw a car drive by, she did from a different state. Who are those people I needed for the article?" She was always kind of desperate for information.
For news.
You'd have to have a very specific kind of personality to do that job.
She had. I know exactly what she has.
and that, what I just showed you, is from 1948. That's not that long ago.
Not that long ago,
Yeah.
right?
Let's see. Now, Steve Soroka imagined what people in Elizabethan England, 1567, would have written in the Book of Faces. So this was super fun. Wherefore doth thee unfriend mine own from the Book of Faces? And thee very much shouldst beest so comfortable and vulgar in thy response. Oh, that is funny. Thank you for that, Steve. Um, Chris Feriolo says, I think the Italians in my tree might keep things quiet unless they want to share a pic of some food or something, kind of like pasta grannies or something. Some of them might create a cooking show on YouTube, though. Oh, we forgot about YouTube as an
Oh,
option. Yeah,
of course, right.
right.
Mm.
As for the rest, I'm not sure. My grandfather Hamill had email, but he barely used it. He had one of those machines that just did email. That was it. Not sure if anyone else would have gone too far into social media. Alice Thompson says it would depend. Grandma West would be telling about the happenings with the family in Haddam, Kansas. And this would include what she was quilting, what she was knitting, who they were for, about the neighbors, things happening at church, and any get-togethers with family. And then if it was father and mother, they would be telling where we moved to. I guess the family moved a lot. So talking about the various locations they were living and why they found themselves there. Thank you, Alice.
Grandma could have a YouTube channel just on her crafts. And,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love it. Yes. Now I thought this was really nice. Elizabeth Eisenman talked about how her parents and grandparents devoted Sunday afternoon to family letters, one to each set of parents while living and one to each child living away from home. Sometimes the three of us got a combined letter, but as often as not, we got individual letters. And there you have what they would have posted on social media, family news and of general interest. I doubt they would have wasted their time photographing their food or opining about politicians. We had civil discussions at the dinner table for the latter. Quaint, eh? So that's sort of like the idea of the Christmas letter, the annual Christmas letter, but amped up. I really like that.
So maybe they would have FaceTimed instead of writing.
Right. And phone calls were expensive back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
letters.
true. My kid can't understand we had to pay for long distance.
I know.
Right.
I mean, I remember in college that was something that you really kept an eye on. Yeah, the number of minutes. So Judith Fry says, if it was my grandma Greenleaf, she would not even be on social media. She did not believe in all that newfangled stuff. For her 83rd birthday, my uncle sent her a microwave, and she flat out refused to have it anywhere in her place. But if she was on social media, if you could get her over the newfangled aspect, she would have been posting the scores of the latest Detroit Tigers ball game.
Oh, okay.
She would watch or listen to every game, and you did not interrupt her. And then Dave Draper has an imagining of what a Facebook post in Iowa from 1860s would be. What is pemmican? Do you all know?
No.
No. Okay. Well, he's imagining the fictional Underground Railroad social media. And Nancy Draper must inevitably, I'm sure, is an ancestor of his. I think actually, from what I remember of David's tree, yes, he does have a family relationship to the Underground Railroad. So thank you, David. Marion Cerruti says my ancestors would have posted their marriage and birth announcements. D. Armistead says, she imagines, you should really consider coming out to East Texas. Best soil I've ever seen. You should see our garden and its enormous cabbages. And this This is a paraphrase of an actual letter from a Bradley aunt written around the mid 1850s. And then she goes on to describe a traveling show that came to town with a trained monkey that did tricks.
That was a big deal too back then. So
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
I
You know,
just go, Vicky.
oh, I found what the pemmican is. It's like a survival food that
Yeah.
it was a bowl
Uh-huh.
made of meat,
Uh-huh.
grease. Do you say
Yep.
grease? Yeah,
Yep.
and berries. Look at that.
We lost Betsy.
Yeah, I thought it was me.
Was this
Wow.
where was this from?
I'm reading in Spanish, so it says it was invented by pre-Columbine indigenous towns of North America.
I can see that. You know, over towards the west side. Oh, we lost Betsy.
Mm.
Well, while we wait for Betsy to come back, did you want Vicky to tell us a little bit about who the member of the week is?
Yes, I'll let you know. And I have something about this media thing that I can share with you. But let's go with can you share my screen, please,
I should.
Cindy? So we don't have that tunnel.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Our member of the week is Elizabeth Steen. Elizabeth, she couldn't be with us today, but well, she became a wiki genealogist in April 2018, and she is very active in our US and Nordic projects. And she has an amazing story about how she became interested in genealogy, where her mother was Danish, and she died in New York in 1976. And years later, they received a letter from a lawyer saying that her grandmother died in Denmark. And to their surprise, the official paperwork said that her mother was an adopted person.
Oh,
And they had no idea, nobody knew about this. And then she started to look for information, Googling, and she found some kind of forest, I guess, where they talked about her family. And she contacted someone who turned out to be a fifth cousin in Florida. And she connected, she was her mentor in finding information and researching. And she found a third cousin in Denmark. And that third cousin found found a first cousin in Denmark. Yeah. So that cousin connected her, Elizabeth, with an uncle, a brother of her mother. So she was really grateful for this distant cousins that taught her to research church books, census records, and other vital data. Well, I like to say that, well, she has been working on this US and Nordic project, and she is inviting us to help in a special project, which is the San Darmo Memorial. Well, I had to look for that because I haven't heard of that. She says many people need bios and more ancestors, more connections. So if you want to help, I will share the link. And this is San Darmo. I didn't know about that. This is a cemetery. It was a place where over 9,000 people were killed and buried. Oh. And it was during Stalin's Great Purge. This is in Russia. And Russian propaganda tried to blame the Finnish soldiers, saying that they killed Soviet prisoners of war, but it was not true. So this is the people who are buried there came from more than 58 countries. So if you want to help in this project and making these bios, it's a great idea.
I mean, that's really interesting. It kind of shows you that you don't necessarily, since they came from so many different countries, it's not necessarily just Russian or Finnish. You could have
Yeah.
your ancestors there as well. We put the link in the chat as well. She added 900 so far, and you said there were thousands, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Thousands, and they came from Poland, Germany, Ukraine, well, many countries. And what inspires Elizabeth? I like some things about what she says. She says learning is an important aspect of life. The historic and cultural background for each person is a great opportunity to know more about political geographical lines changing over time. I don't know about you, Sandy, but I have read more history books than ever making genealogy.
I think you're right.
Yeah, researching for my ancestors, and I've learned a lot. And she says, you never know who's going to pop up in your search. She's connected with Congressman Steny Hoyer, whose ancestors she shares. And she says, it's a small world once we connected. I love that phrase. Yes.
And a little trivia, a little genealogy trivia. Steny Hoyer is congressman from Maryland, but he was pretty much one of the main reasons to get a lot of our National Archive over to Maryland. So a lot of the genealogy that we research is hitting into a building that he applied to get built. And so he's connected into genealogy in a different way as well. So she's right. You never know.
Well, great. Yeah. Well, and she says it's good to know that the family tree is there for our descendants to see, and it is hoped to expand in the future. That's what inspires Elizabeth.
You know, and as you said that she learned about the adoption, she's able to document all that on WikiTree. You know, in other places it's not as easy. So that statement you just read from her is really important to her family.
Yes, it is for descendants. Mm-hmm. Yes, we always talk about our legacy, that this is our legacy. And her favorite feature of WikiTree is Connection Finder. And we'll be seeing some of that afterward with Connection Checkers. So, well, this was Elizabeth.
It's a great job. We also learn every time that I see the member of the week. You mentioned how you go and you research other areas. I always kind of research what they put in, what their favorite thing that they might be working on. You know, one week it might be DNA, so I'll go look at that person's information. But this memorial has me very curious. Thanks for showing that, Vicki.
Yes. I'll share the link afterwards, or maybe you shared the link. I heard you shared something.
Yeah, it's in the chat, but it's a lot, so it would be nice to have help.
Yeah. Yes, of course. And well, this is one of the reasons that we showed this interview to create some movement around the projects that are their interest. So I'll let you now see what the profile makeover is.
Yes, please.
Yes. We had a theme this month, Sandy. Do you remember about Valentine?
Yes, it's love. It's share the love. Bring the love. Give your ancestors some love.
Yes. Last week we had a profile of someone named Lovina, and I invited you to be creative. So maybe you would get inspired by a name, maybe by a photo. And I'm so glad that Melissa Jamieson finished this profile. I was really hoping she would finish today. And now I can share you. She says, I love to do, Melissa always does unknown profiles. And she did one, and then she noticed we had a theme. So she said, my mother, she did a second one. My mother had given me a photo months ago, and we haven't been able to figure out who was in the photo. But just yesterday, I solved the mystery. It was the golden wedding anniversary of my great-great-grandparents. So she worked on her grandmother, Lizzie Steele Carter. She cleaned her up a bit and added the photo and the free space page that she created to identify other family members. So that being said, I'll show you this. This was I know. I'll zoom in. This is a really complete profile, full of sources. We had a portrait. It's not a photo, but a portrait. So it looks really clean and complete. But, everything could be improved. And she really stood up.
Oh, wow. Isn't that beautiful?
This is a beautiful background. I don't really like backgrounds for myself, but this looks great. It really makes everything pop up. And we see the same, the photo, the sources. Well, Elizabeth was born in 1870 in Barnwell, South Carolina. And her parents were Thomas and Eleanor. She had 8 siblings. And she got married with Charles Franklin Carter. Remember, they had a 50th wedding anniversary. So they were married for a long time. She was 16 when they married, and he was 20. They had 10 children. Only 7 of them survived. I love this. This is all this information that the census gives. Right here, we know that her widowed mother was living 2 doors down with her brother James in 1900. And then in 1910, the farm is owned free of a mortgage. I really like this info. And their son Angus was operating the farm. Their oldest child Melvin is working as a rural teacher. Charlie is a rural maid carrier, as well as working on the farm. Well, it's great information that this provide and really helps you build what was like living with them. And this is the photo that it was not on the before picture, but now we have the picture of their 15th wedding anniversary. And you see a lot of people here. So,
and that's why she did the space page to...
Exactly. And this was in 1936, so it's really hard to know who are they. It would be really frustrating, right?
It would. They really would.
Well, this is the free space page for their golden wedding anniversary. And this is what came to my mind when we were talking about social media. This would be the post of this event. They celebrated 50 years of marriage, surrounded by family and friends. And Melissa says, so many family members are in this photo, but most are unidentified. And likely the celebration was reported in the Barnwell People on December 30, 1936. So this would be the social media post. And it's amazing, all the information we have. It's a great finding. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Carter celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary at an informal all-day party, and they described the party. They say during the morning, all of the guests joined in group singing. After that, a prize was given to the group judged most musical. When dinner was served, all the guests were seated except those who attended the wedding of the couple 50 years ago. That's awesome. And they were, and they are completely mentioned with their names. And this couple came down the steps to the dining room as the bridal chorus from Lohengrin was played by Miss Rachel Carter, a granddaughter of the guests of honor. Imagine that. And then they named the oldest person present who made a short speech. And the dinner was served by one of the daughters, the granddaughters. And after dinner, they played games on the lawn. And just before the guests left, they took pictures. So this picture was shortly before they left. And then they mention, well, they say how Mrs. Carter was dressed, a lot of info, and they name all the guests. Imagine they're all identified. Well, they're Mrs., Mr. and Mrs., but you get the idea of who they are, and it really simplifies the research, right? And they named their grandchildren that were present and the relatives and friends. So here we have a photo with numbers, and everyone, or maybe not everyone, but they're identified
And
with
if we
the
just had
info.
that photo, we would have said, "Oh, that's lovely. That's nice or that's lovely." But now that you see that you have all the details of the event, that's kind of really great too. And I'm glad you're showing this table. I've been addicted. As many of you know, we did bingo spaces. I love space pages. I
Mhm.
love it when people do things like this. And don't be afraid of tables. If you have something like a free version of Chat GPT and you've got a list, put in Chat GPT,
Mm.
create a wiki table and how many
Oh,
columns, and it will do it in 10 seconds flat, pretty much. So
Nice.
don't even
wow.
think of it. But I love space pages that have the people linked as well.
Mhm.
That's so cool.
Well, that's a great tip, the tip of the day.
It's so cool. Welcome back, Betsy.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you
I,
miss
I
you
was
miss us.
I was like, huh,
Sorry.
they're being awfully quiet. And I was finally like, are you guys there?
Oh, sorry.
I had to move locations. Okay, I'm back.
And I agree. I love
Oh,
newspaper articles. Everybody, try looking for newspaper articles. If you don't have a subscription to like newspapers.com, you can always put it in the general help in Discord. Somebody will pick it up and
mhm.
say, "Hey, here's a link. Can I get a newspaper clipping?" Reach out to me. I clip all day for people. So reach out to others in your project because
Mhm.
this detail that you just had makes the whole picture come to life.
Everything. It's everything. So great work, Melissa, and thank you for giving us this joy. It really makes me happy to see this.
It does.
Great work.
Okay, Betsy. Did you want to?
Okay, yeah, let's flip over. So now I can stay for about 15 more minutes, a little more time since I moved inside. So let's move on to the photos. And let's see. Well, I'm just gonna get myself there. Okay, and then now, do you see photos of the week?
We do.
Yes.
Yes, good. Yes. Okay. So we have one more week with photos from home. And I think, Sandy, you told me that you had only shown one. And I did see this really precious one of the two little ones cleaning the front steps. So the rest are all new to us. We've got Alexis Nelson showed a 1896 photo of her third great grandaunt, Jane McCleary, and she's shown here in her home at age 99.
Wow.
I guess
I know.
we're not seeing your screen.
You're not.
I see the newspaper.
The newspaper, and it is cut.
Oh,
Maybe you're
okay. Wait, maybe I didn't do. I see. Okay, I'm going to try again. You're seeing something.
maybe share the whole screen, maybe.
Right, exactly. Present, share screen, entire screen. There we go. Thank you. So now let's look at great grandaunt Jenny at the age of 99. Fantastic photo. I mean, it just sort of makes you want to like look at every detail. I mean,
Detail, yeah.
yeah, the room and the photos, the portraits.
So wallpaper, what she, yeah,
There's a piano.
Is that an organ?
it looks like it.
Mhm.
Yeah. So what a treasure. And Alexis said that she never married, but she's very loved by her nieces and nephews. And at the time this photo was taken, she was known to be the oldest person in Pike County, Illinois. Wow. So let's see. Now this one is cool. It's actually a series of photos posted by Brenda Millage, And she writes that this is the home her husband lived in from 10 to 18. And his parents bought an orchard when they moved from Saskatchewan to British Columbia. This picture was taken in 1976 after the trees had died and been removed. Oh, how amazing would that be to have a picture, from before when there was an orchard. And then this is the same house taken in 2012 after both parents had died. So you can see what a change between that and this, and I'm not going.
It looks completely urban.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
right?
Yes,
with a street and.
I know. I mean, where's all this sort of grassland? And look at this tiny little road, and then there's a street, and so
You're
very,
right.
very
It looks like a subdivision.
right. It does.
Yeah.
It does. So, now speaking of sort of snapshots through time, who was this? Barbara did this collage of all the homes where her father lived, from the farm where he grew up to the homes where he raised his family, to the era where their home was an RV. So it's a way to see his homes at a glance. So this is awesome. I'm going to blow it up a bit. So we've got his childhood home in Suffern, New York, then young adulthood, North Granby, Connecticut, a rented house in Rockaway, New Jersey, Orchard Park, New York, an apartment, Florida, and then their RVs. They look very content. More New Jersey, yeah. So what a nice idea.
That is.
If you have these photos like this scattered throughout your albums, you could take a page from Barbara's book. Really good idea.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes. Brenda Lang says that home to me and most of my cousins is my maternal grandparents' home in Spring Hill, Kansas. My grandparents, Paul and Sue Urban, bought this 1890 built home in 1950 when my mother, their oldest, was 2. They raised 3 daughters there in this home, and each of the daughters and their children lived here at one point or another in later decades.
Oh, wow.
It had really, I think that's such a great point of connection for the cousins.
Yeah.
It had really cool old-time stained glass edge windows and disconnected old gas lamp hardware still in the entry foyer. This photo is from 1993. The garage was an addition they did in the 1970s when I was about 10. For me, it is the epitome of home sweet home. Like a really sweet house. Thanks, Brenda. Now, Sandy was talking about blogs, and one of the people who has been blogging amongst a sizable group on WikiTree is David Randall. So I thought we'd just take a quick look. So he tells this story about
an amazing story.
I know, and it was so interesting to me that I'm like, I got to click over and I have to find out. So basically, his great grandmother walked out on her family in the summer of 1887. Her name was Phoebe, and she left behind 3 small children. She went on to marry somebody else and have another family. And the father married again, and he married another woman named Phoebe. Exact same spelling. So David in his blog post, so it's randallroots.com. blogspot.com. He tells the story of this. He just thought that there was just one Phoebe.
And the researching involved must have been, if you just look at it at first glance, you make assumptions.
Of course, yeah.
And you just got to read this entry. This is one of the craziest. I've been in genealogy way, way, way long. And this is one of the craziest things I've ever read in my life. So,
Oh,
yeah. So, yes, super, super cool. And of course, this is a really fascinating photo here. He said that the two people over here are his ancestors. He's not sure who the other people are. Could be neighbors. And Sandy, this is yours. My son's pup Tess waiting for her best friend to arrive for the weekend. It will always feel like home to me when my son and his pup Tess are here.
Is she waiting for her friend Maggie the golden doodle?
That's a great picture.
I agree with Star. Your foyer is beautiful.
Yeah.
Now let's see. This is from Chris Wine, who is in the chat. And her various homes. We have Titusville, Florida. And that was at the time her dad was working at Cape Canaveral. And she got to go on the base, and she was the cutest red-haired baby on the base. And then another home in Apex, North Carolina. And she tells the story of the move, I guess, into this house, maybe. And sort of it was a series of catastrophes or small catastrophes. And then finally, well, here is that the same house? No, can't tell. I guess it's the same house. Yeah. And you can see how it changed. And then finally the family moved on to Ohio. So, yeah, really nice to have photos.
All of that would be fabulous on a space page.
Yes. Well, speaking of that, now this is not quite it is a space page, but this is from Steve Sharauka. And this is a house in London where he lived briefly. And he writes about how the area had a very fascinating history in terms of the people who lived there, the architecture, and reasons that it sort of became a prominent area. So he actually started a one-place study for Charleville Circus, Sydenham, London. So,
and he did a really great job with this. He put detail in it. He actually reaches out to past residents to try and get information or photos or just stories. He goes the extra mile for his.
Yeah.
And I learned circus is like a circus. Because I created this wood forum and I was like, circus. Are we doing a circus for one place?
Well, there are places like, I know there's Oxford Circus in London. Yeah, it's just sort of one of those things that go in there. But yeah, thank you, Steve. And this very, very, very interesting description here. So have a look at his answer and his free space page for the one place study.
Yes, and I shared the link for Randall Roots, so we know the Phoebe story.
Thank you very much. And we have 5 ancestors to celebrate. So let me make this a little smaller. I'm pretty sure I listened carefully. I think we haven't done ancestors since February 1.
So I think the first one.
Yeah, unbelievable. So I think we pick up here. The last one you did was Stuart Aubrey's
Yeah.
mother and son. Karen Stewart writes about how Bird Robow Cutright was her step great grandmother. She was a real character and life of the party. She lived to be 98.
Wow.
And apparently her favorite color later in life was pink, as you can tell. But I love this portrait of her from, I guess,
No.
maybe
Wow.
maybe she was about 40 there. Yeah, 1918. Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, she was a genealogist, and yep, and she was from Upshur County, West Virginia. Would that make her? Yes, that would make her an Appalachian.
That's where I used to live. Yep.
Yes. Yeah. Let's see. Doug McCown says this second great grandfather died in February. This G2G reminds me I have some improvements to make to his profile. I've learned a bit since I first built it, but he has a great mustache. So here is William Ira Goad, and he does indeed have an impressive mustache.
He does.
Yes. And Doug, I have to say, I read the profile, and I'm sure, we all have like things that we want to do on various profiles, but it's definitely more than bare bones. You've got photos and history. And
when the Appalachians kind of helped him out too when he was posted it since I think. Don't hold me to that because a couple of them went in and added some freshening.
Got it. Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, it's got a lot of great information there in the photos.
Yes, and this is a store that the family owned briefly. So,
I mean, if that's a bad one, I'm in trouble.
I know, right? That's what I was thinking. Donna Lancaster writes, my mom would have been 101 on the 6th of February. The photo on her profile is so fitting. She taught herself to play guitar, mandolin, and piano. There was always a lot of music in the house growing up. She passed that love down to me. I was a theater kid, loved doing musicals, and sang at weddings. So let's see. Is this? Yes. Here we go. Beautiful photo. She looks so happy.
Yeah.
And I can see the resemblance in Donna and her mom.
And Kathy Nava shared her father, John Urbach. Oh, Kathy, my dad has the same birthday, February 18th. 1934 in Vienna, Australia was when Kathy's dad was born. A good friend of his parents helped them leave Vienna and come to New York. He was 5 years old when he arrived with his parents in 1939. He has many patents that I didn't know about until I started to research him.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, this is from Ann Fiordalisi. Hi, Ann. I know you're in the chat. This is a wedding photo. The bride is her first cousin once removed. And this is the wedding photo from 1947 in Bradley, Illinois. And then we have other connections to the month from birthdays and death dates. And she also mentions her baby brother, who's still with us, living in California, was also a February. He celebrated his birthday yesterday. So, yeah. Oh, and wait, I feel like we have one more. Elias McGeehee. This is from Victor, who I think is in the chat. He was born February 6th, 1874, died in 1955. He is Victor's second great granduncle. And it sounds like this profile in Ancestor is a little bit of a work in progress for Victor. And before this week, Victor only had his name and birth year in his tree.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
For
because
this week.
it was a sibling of maybe not a direct ancestor.
Mhm.
He came across his obituary in Genealogy Bank in Evansville, Indiana, and that turned up some clues about people in the family. So, work in progress. And Victor noted he thought this was interesting that his granduncle was in the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So, but there are our ancestors for February.
It's really great to see everybody write those little snippets and
Yeah.
photos and show how global
Yeah,
we can be.
absolutely. Let me come back to you. Yeah, and I neglected to say that the photo theme for March is sport. So you can start looking for those sport athletic photos. And
Oh, I have a lot.
good.
Yeah.
All right.
I know, because it'll be next Saturday.
I know.
Will be like we said, will be the March moving on
Mhm.
and getting some of the summer from Vicky.
Yes, little by little.
Well, sadly, I have to sign off now. So,
Well, that was really great to see all the photos and the ancestors. Have a great weekend.
yeah, thanks. You too.
Thank
Happy
you,
Saturday,
Betsy.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. See you.
Okay, so you guys ready for the feature profiles of the week? As you know, I do it a little different than Greg. I usually do trivia because when I look at them, I always want to know more to the story. Kind of as Vicky, as you said, you research places and people that you never thought you'd research ever before. So with the featured profiles of the week, I kind of come up with some trivia. But how many of you are playing Connection Checkers? It happens every week. Every Tuesday, we get a fresh batch of 12 featured profiles. Next week on Tuesday is people with floral names. And if you go to G2G, the featured profiles are always up at the top. Computer's a little slow. Are always up at the top. And also, if you want to nominate people, Abby does a great job. She always says, P.S. next week, floral names. And you can nominate people in advance, and they give you the whole list. It can change. If something changes in the world, it does change, and they'll bump, for example, a floral or something like that. But Connection Checkers, so everybody knows it's always right at the very top in orange and come play. Some people are confused what Connection Checkers really is. You can come over and just grab your list here and put it as an answer. You'll see how some people have done. But what we really want you to do is like Deborah did. Deborah took Winston Churchill and she verified the steps, which means from Winston Churchill to his father, is there a source there that proves that? And if there's not, then you can look for a source and add it. If there is, then that's great. And you move on to the next person in your line and the next person. And I think, was it our featured member of the week that said she loves Connection Checkers?
Yes, this is her favorite feature.
So, for example, I have Patrick Henry is 12 degrees. Who's going to beat me? Who has somebody closer than 12 degrees this week?
Let's see.
And I will tell you that to verify, to go through the steps, this is kind of what I do as well. As I come up to this connection to me, just because it's at the top of the page, it's quicker. And I can see my steps. I will tell you,
really close.
I had to bomb out on this one. It got really difficult with sources. There's two that I just couldn't. when you're looking for sources for women in the 1700s in America or pre-America, it's difficult. It's really, really tricky. But this is generally what I do. I actually reverse view because I like seeing how my path goes. But the cool thing about connection checkers is once you do it a couple times, your first couple paths are already verified by you from before. So it goes really, really quick. It's just these women in the middle. So Vicki, who's your closest?
John Kennedy. That's 17.
17. And let's see. So we've got Churchill and Kennedy at 22. Let's see. I have 4 people closest. So I was showing as Wilberforce, Kennedy, Churchill, and Lincoln at 16. That's intriguing, John.
Yeah. Actually, I have a tie too between Kennedy and Churchill, both at 17.
That's really intriguing. So that's interesting. And how do you nominate people for the category of people? That is kind of how I mentioned to you. Go to the connection checkers. This is the easiest way I do it is when I go up to connection checkers to G to G and I see the weekly one. It's always going to be at the top in the yellow area. And Abby does that great job at the very end of her mention every week. She lists what's next week. And then you can go ahead and she gives you what they're looking for, a couple people that they might have already selected, and just answer this with the profile would be handy. And you really want a profile that has a nice biography. I know sometimes they don't have full biographies, and Abby will post a note on them saying, can you beef up the biography? We want to feature this week. And you want some decent, if possible, CC7, because that's what makes it fun for everybody. Okay, let's talk about Patrick Henry. This was my closest one. So a lot of you in the U.S. you probably know Patrick Henry quite well. He is best known for his speech. This is Speechwriters Week for "Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death." That was delivered, prior to the American Revolution. He was one of the key figures in the American Revolution. We have so many key figures, though. And he served as the first and 6th governor of Virginia. Let me get rid of that. So he was probably more interesting because he wanted to stay close to home. He did not really want to become a senator or anything like that, but he was offered as well Secretary of State, which is a pretty high role in the United States of America, and he wanted to stay kind of close to home. So this is his profile, and this is amazing. He has CC7 of over 80,000.
Wow.
This is one of the highest that I've seen. So it's just crazy amazing. And American Revolution Project is the one who manages them. And for all of you that are DAR, you got DAR. I love the photos as well. I think photos really enhance it. And adding the children, I love it when they add the children with the links, because I'm kind of lazy to come all the way back up here and click on the kids. So I love it when they do that as well. And then the timeline, when you've got historical people and they're pretty important, I think timelines are really a great way to separate it out and define it. Otherwise, it just kind of all blends in the biography.
Yeah, I find that difficult to decide. Sometimes when someone has a lot of different sides, like military life, political life, and then you mix years. So the timeline helps.
It just kind of does something for my eyes and my brain to make, because this is a lot. I mean, a lot of work has been put into this. So this is a well done profile. This is very well with 80,000 CC7 too. It's It's pretty fascinating that they put a lot of work into this. Okay, and then let's move on to Abe Lincoln. And I'm still trying to get over that Irish John has a close connection to Abe Lincoln as well. He has only 22 CC7, which is fascinating to me because if I told most people outside of America Patrick Henry and I said Abraham Lincoln, the chances of Abraham Lincoln being known would be much higher than Patrick Henry. But maybe he just didn't have a whole bunch of ancestors to do. And the U.S. President's Project is the one who manages him. I think you guys probably know a lot about him. I'll just give you a little bit of trivia. And this picture, I think, really shows it. He, so far, I think so far, is the tallest president. He was 6 feet 4 inches. And speech, since we're talking about speech writers, givers, he was known to give speeches, so much so that people would get annoyed at him because at the drop of the hat, if somebody asked him a question, he would take off his hat or he would sit down, and you knew you were in for a very, very long time of a speech or a story. Love stories. His most famous one, of course, is the Gettysburg Address. But everybody thinks that was hours long. It was a really long one, but it was only 272 words. And I know growing up in school, when we learned it, we always thought it took hours. He stood up there and talked on the battlefield for hours with this speech. But at 272 words, it wasn't extremely long. And it's one of the most famous speeches in the United States that we have. He was also the first president to be assassinated from the United States, and he signed the Emancipation Proclamation that declared enslaved people in the Confederate part of the United States were now free. Oh, and he had a patent. He had a patent dealing with boat lifts. I didn't research into that, but I thought that was interesting, especially since we just talked about Kathy Nava having patents in her. And he's on a stamp. So this is well done. I like how this is done too with the family ancestry. When you guys add like these sub headers, things like that, it really makes it stand out that if you're coming onto his profile and you only want to maybe see something about his ancestry, like I asked how come his CC7 so low? I could maybe come down here and see some of the notes and the family descendants that they have. And
you get a link for that.
I love that. And then they did a timeline too. And you almost have to with some of these important people, the notables, because it's a lot. It's a lot that they did. And then the legacy. I often wonder, do you have ancestors or even your parents or grandparents? What is their legacy? And why do we not add that section to our profiles? So it's something to think about. If they had a legacy, sometimes it's a legacy that they were the maybe the first educate, maybe the first college, wanted to go to college, anything like that would be interesting. Okay, let's move on to Eleanor Roosevelt. And again, one of America's famous ones. I am actually 9th cousins, 4 times removed from her. She is obviously because her husband was president and served the longest. So she's the longest first lady that has served. But she was so much more than just a first lady. Everybody kind of thinks of her first lady, and she was pretty famous when her husband could not travel as often. And she would say, I am his legs, I am his voice. And she would go to underprivileged areas, and you know how I love the coal miners. So one of her famous pictures is going to the coal mines, and she actually went to the coal mines and down into the coal mines to learn about them. But she's also was our first U.S. delegate to the United Nations. So she was very much into diplomacy, speech writing. That was one of her most famous speeches when she was introduced at the United Nations, but such a key figure in human rights. And I think sometimes we get lost with her thinking of her only as a first lady, and she was definitely so much more than that. And of course, her family was related to Teddy. I love the photos that they have here too to document the history as well. So that would be Eleanor Roosevelt and Kennedy. Now this one, let's see, this is one that you're closest to. You're at 17. That's interesting. I'm at 17 as well, but he only has 3,200 CC7, and that kind of surprised me a lot. I think there's probably some that we could add to that. And I'm going to assume that everybody probably knows of the name John F. Kennedy. And he was our youngest president elected at 43 years old and a Pulitzer Prize winner. He won in 1957 for his book Profiles in Courage. Very much a political family. Huge political family that continues today. U.S. President's Project again manages him. And he was really kind of known for his speeches. Now, I want to point out something here. All the presidents, the modern age presidents, they do have speechwriters. So to assume that the president wrote the entire speech himself would not be accurate. But to write a speech is one thing. To give it is a different thing. He was pretty special when he would give his speeches. And if you're ever curious about any of them, all his speeches are up on YouTube to look at. He actually also was into human rights, and he established what's called the Peace Corps in 1961. And as most of you know, he was assassinated in Dallas in 1963. And supposedly some information will be coming out about his assassination, but who knows? There's so many conspiracy theories about his death that who knows what's accurate and what doesn't. That's why I like this profile. They've done a really good job of just showcasing the accuracy and what they know. And there's another profile I'm going to show you too that's very similar. And then we've got the death and legacy again. Now, this was an interesting timeline. So before, we've seen the ones with a lot of detail. And this one, we see just his life pretty much in timeline. And this is a table that just doesn't have a board. And I agree. Yeah. And, ask what you can do for your country was one of his famous ones. Of course, we all know him as well as the husband of Jackie. And he was the first. Every president since him has gone to Berlin, Germany, and he was the first to deliver his famous speech. I'm going to really try to remember my German accent here, but Ich bin ein Berliner. And what he was trying to do with communist Berlin is say, I'm one of you, and you're not alone. So he was interesting. Okay. Winston Churchill. Now I'm curious for everybody that's in the chat that is from Europe. How close are you to Winston Churchill? And Vicki, how close are you to Winston? Were you 17?
17.
17. And I'm 18. Because, he did have a pretty large family to document, and he has almost 16,000 CC7. But a lot of times we focus on US, as I've shown. So I'm curious to see what those of you in Europe with a European, somebody from England, what is your connection in your CC7? And we haven't mentioned a lot about categories. Wow. A lot of categories here. And you guys might have heard or read on G2G that WikiTree has been talking a little bit about improving our profiles for ranking in Google searches. So if you do a search in Google, that our profile might show up higher than what it is now if it was just like a blank profile. And that kind of ties in Vicky's, share the love with the profile improvement. The more that you can take a profile that's kind of blank and add to it, then that makes it more viewable on searches outside of WikiTree, but also people are intrigued. And my next question to everybody is, how many times do you see a category and curious and click on it? I think
not so often.
I think mostly I click on the cemetery ones. If a cemetery category, I think that's mostly. But I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. The fourth queen, and it's just another way of learning about a person and what they did. Adding categories and photos and a rich biography and, of course, sources improves the rank of the profile. And I'd say this one probably has pretty good rank because it has a lot of categories. And the England Project, of course, manages this. And a really, really good job. So those of you that might not have heard of Winston Churchill, he served as the British Prime Minister twice. But he also won a Nobel Prize in Literature for his historical writings. And so many movies and so much has been done about him. All the movies are fairly good and fairly accurate. He did have a little bit of a temper, but he was one of the ones that I would say spoke off the cuff. And his speech writers really got annoyed with him sometimes by him not going word for word on what was said. He suffered from depression and he called it the black dog. So if you ever heard anything from him saying the black dog is here or the black dog is at home or something like that, he's not referring to a dog. He's actually referring to the shadow of depression that he had. And of course, he loved painting. He had over 500 pieces of artwork. And the thing that I did not know, I don't even know how this is possible. I don't know anything about this, but he became an honorary citizen in 1963 to the U.S. I didn't know that's a thing. So that's something that I'm curious about and see what we've got. Okay. Oops. Let me come back up. And we have from Canada, Louis David Riel. I hope I said that right and I didn't offend too many Canadians. The leader of the Métis. I think I said that right. If not, please correct me in chat because I'd like to get it right. People in Canada and founder of the Province of Manitoba. He led 2 resistant movements against the Canadian government. And sadly, he was executed for treason in 1885. And this is a category I did not know. So, persons of national historical significance. So I learned something from these featured profiles every time. I had no clue. So this is designated by the Canadian government. And I don't do a lot of Canadian profiles because it's not my wheelhouse. I kind of usually ask favors from others to help me out. But I did not know that this was something, there's 391 of them, that this was something that the Canadian government actually notates. So this was a pretty good profile as well. And it also talks about if you don't know the time period in 1869, the Hudson Bay Company is something that's pretty fascinating. If you notice in this particular profile, the Hudson Bay Company is not going to go to a free space page or a category in WikiTree. Instead, it's going to link over into Wikipedia. So when you get links, and this reminds me of something that you mentioned, I think last summer, Vicki, that sometimes when you have extra information that you want to include about a person that's not particularly a source about this person, include details about what they were involved in, the companies they were involved in, or what was going on during
the context.
Yeah. So that was I like to point that out too, because being with ambassadors, if you guys have seen, Azure does a fantastic job of talking about link building. It's kind of what this is, linking back into others. And so he was kind of known as the father of Manitoba. And let me close some of these down real quick. And William Wilberforce. I had no clue who William was. And I think I knew him, but I didn't know his name, but I'm not sure. I am 20 degrees. What about you, Vicky?
20. Yeah, 22.
That's interesting.
I mean, 22
Yeah. 22.
also.
I like that. I'm 22. I like so
No, 20. Yeah, for me, it's 20.
And this guy was really interesting. And I know there's got to be a little bit more out there for research on him, but I like that they included some of his papers, his private papers, because this is where you really get to know a person. So if you're working on a notable, or even if your own family member, my grandfather wrote, I'll call it a book. It's not really a book. It's a binder of his autobiography, but we always considered that his papers. And so if you have something like that, definitely mention it, include it, do a space page with it, because again, WikiTree is kind of your cloud storage. So I think there's about 90 pages. I could take those 90 pages and scan them into a space page for my grandfather and put it up on a WikiTree space page, link it from the profile. But who is William? So he was a leading British abolitionist who actually played a key role in ending the transatlantic slave trade. And the speeches he gave were pretty powerful. If you've watched any historical films or series, especially around Queen Victoria, and earlier, you would know a little bit more about him. He introduced anti-slavery legislation in Parliament 20 years before he found success. He kept it up, and that's due to a lot of speeches. And I would say he probably wrote most of his, and they came from his passion on this particular topic. I did not know this either, and this is something for your animal lovers. So he founded the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. I thought that was more of a fairly modern organization, but no, it wasn't. I just thought that was fascinating. A deeply religious man, and he died 3 days after hearing that slavery would be abolished in the British Empire, and he died in 1833. So we're talking, he died in 1833, but he was a very forward thinker to try to abolish slavery and also protect animals.
Yes.
This was, I think I probably knew of him, but did not know him. So because of future profiles, I am not going to try to pronounce this name. I will just say Chief Joseph. I think I know how to pronounce this name, but I don't want to mess it up out of respect. And this gives us a little information about Chief Joseph, who his Indian name translates to thunder rolling down a mountain. But it gives me time to also mention that this is managed by the Native American Project. And I will say that if you're working on Native American profiles, they are tricky. They are very tricky because there's a lot of myths, there's a lot of folklore that are put in onto these individuals. And the Native American Project does a really good job of separating that out and removing it and only using fact. And this gentleman has a tremendous amount of folklore and myths that it's a kind of absurd how much he has. And they've done a great job of saying, this is a myth, this is not to be fact. So if you work on or want to work on Native American profiles on WikiTree, please join the project. They have really good instructions on their profiles. I personally feel their profiles are a little different because they have to deal with all the myths and everything that's going through. So he was a leader of the Nez Perce tribe that was in, our Midwest. His father was also a chief, and he actually had resistance against the U.S. government encroaching. So they said to this tribe, you can have this land. You can have this land. His father's buried on this land. You can have this land, and we won't disturb you. Well, guess what? Gold was discovered on his land. And the American government said, you know what? we want this land back. So he was known as a diplomat. He tried really, really hard for peace. He did not want the war that he'd seen many other tribes go through and many other chiefs have to deal with throughout the, I'd say, the Western America. He did lead his people on a really remarkable 1,400-mile retreat to Canada to avoid U.S. military forces. And we're talking anything that they own, they are, they have horses, they're walking. It's 1,400 miles just to keep peace and avoid war. His known for his famous surrender speech of, I will fight no more. He was tired of fighting. It wasn't something that he wanted for his people. And he's really, really amazing. And thank you for mentioning this, Anne, because it's true. A really great movie that's factual about him. It's amazing that a lot of people think of Native Americans as, warriors and fighting and going up against the military for their cause. And this gentleman just said, I want peace for everybody. I want peace for my tribe. So really well known, but sadly he never returned to his homeland in Oregon, even though the U.S. government promised he could have the land back. And his father's buried on that land. And that's when he kind of was like, I need peace. I'll have to leave my father behind. And that's a very, very tough thing for Native Americans. It's really, really tough. So definitely read this profile. If you're interested in knowing Native American profile, join the project. It's the best recommendation I can give you. But if you read this profile, you will see where they've done a fantastic job trying to make sure that only truths and the myths and the folklore were not included. Sometimes I think with profiles, we could add myths and folklore in under that subtitle, but I don't think it's appropriate for Native American profiles because people take them as fact. And this is project protected for a reason. They're trying to keep the accuracy as they get through. Okay. And then Vita Goldstein, and this is for our Australians. I hope we still got some that are in the chat. So if I don't go over anything that you think is really an interesting fact, please drop it in the chat for us so we can do it. So she's a suffragette. She's an Australian suffragette and social reformer, and she fought for women's voting rights. And one of the first women in the British Empire to run for parliament. She didn't win, but she did put her name out there. And that's interesting. John is 18 and I'm 21. Now she has 1500 CC7, so I imagine we could all get closer. But Vicki, what are you?
20 degrees.
Where do you connect to her through? I'm curious.
Let's see. I'm usually closer to European profiles, but I connect. I have an ancestor who married an American mining entrepreneur named John Sewell, and I connect through her sister.
That's
Sister Elsie.
Sister Elsie. And through her sister's in-laws? Through her sister's
Yes.
yeah.
Her husband, Henry Champion, and then there's a couple of marriages in between.
And she also advocated for equal pay, anti-war, as well as some of our other speech givers, and social welfare reform. So I'm seeing a trend here, a lot of social welfare reform going on with the speech featured profiles this week. And she also had a newspaper. I don't think it's still inactive, but at the Women's Sphere. And she did play a major key role in women's right to vote. And women get the right to vote in Australia in 1902. And another Project Protected as well. I got to look at the categories. So National Anti-Sweating League. What is this? What is this? So again, this is going to be Australia and Britain, and it's a social reformer group. And it's against sweatshops. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was thinking maybe sports at first or something, but this is brilliant. So I thought that was really cool to see. And I love this profile. Australia, you guys do such a lovely job of detailing it with the photos and the subheaders as well. And
wow.
This is such an old photo. I love how it's included. And then the other activism. So we talked about legacy, but there's also other things that they might have done that are not their main notice for. And so this is where she promoted heavily the women's rights. And she was a pacifist during the First World War. And the letter. This is just great that you also you just put the letter up, but you also transcribed it. So great job for that one too. Okay, moving on to Charles de Gaulle, and I'm so surprised. 236 CC7. I bet many of us would be much closer. So for those of you that might work on French profiles, definitely look into this. If you've been through Paris, if you flew to Paris, you will know this name as well. The airport named after him. And of course, he led the Free French forces during World War II. He founded the Fifth Republic and served as president of France 10 years, from 1959 to 1969. But this is the interesting thing. He survived multiple assassination attempts. And I like how you see the historical photo of him, and then you're seeing more modern photo. This is a picture of timeline of major leaders. Just looking at that is interesting. And it says his funeral was attended by world leaders, but he requested a simple ceremony in his hometown. He's a famous guy, and he just wanted the end to be simple. He did end up resigning from the presidency because of a failed referendum. But, I think for me, I know him more for his military than for his presidency. I'm not sure if that's just the way that it leaned for American teaching. So I'm curious to see what others have known him for. And that's interesting. So 25 and 22. Okay. And two more left, guys. We've got somebody from German, and let's see if I can bring the accent back for this one. So this is Richard von Weizsäcker. And he was born in Stuttgart, died in Berlin. He is fairly recent. He died in 2015 at 94. And I want to point out this profile. This is kind of interesting too. And I want to ask Vicky, do you do 2 language profiles?
Yes, a lot. Yeah.
And I think that it's really respectful to do it in their native and
original.
Yeah. And then, as we know, we do know that WikiTree has a lot of English speakers on there. So it's great to see that as well. And he served as president of Germany from 1984 to 1994. But he actually, the reason why he's included this week is he gave a historic speech in 19, let me bring up his source in English. There we go. He gave a historic speech in 1985 acknowledging Germany's responsibility for World War II crimes.
Oh.
And that is just, I mean, that, kind of hits you hard when you see that somebody who wasn't involved in those crimes, but as president, he's going to acknowledge those crimes. So healing and people can move on. He fought in World War II as well, wounded multiple times. And as mayor of West Berlin, he is a key figure during the Cold War that was going on. So I like how they have both. They let you know in the native language and in the English language. So now I got a question for, I'll say Irish John, but I'm going to say Welsh John. John, do you and Hillary, if Hillary's still here, I'd love to hear from both of you. Do you guys write profiles in Welsh? Because that's a more difficult language. I thought you might be a little closer this time, Joku. I thought we might have got her a little closer.
I'm 22.
And I am 25 from it. But with 452 connections, and I know the Germany project, they will probably get this, get a lot more connections to him. We could be all closer to him. Okay. And the last one, guys, is her name is Isabel, but you might know her as a Sojourner Truth, and a very well-known person in the United States. And this brings us to a different project that has a different type of challenge, I should say. So 161 connections. She was born in about 1797. For any woman in this time frame, in this location of the world, to try and find sources is incredibly difficult. It's a challenge. This is why I had to give up on Patrick Henry. But so she was born in New York and died in Michigan. And this profile is going to be managed by the USBH project. And again, this is another category, 100 greatest African Americans. And in the US, this is Black History Month. So this is perfect timing. So this particular project created this category, and they've got 100 on the dot right here. And I thought that was interesting. If you want to learn a little bit about history, especially since this is Black History Month here, that would be something to do. This is her famous picture. This is a picture that I think most of us know of her, more so than this. Well, this is pretty famous too, but this is the picture I think most of us have seen. So I thought this was odd. She was born in slavery in New York, and I did not know that New York, where in this particular location, had slavery at that time, but she escaped and became a leading abolitionist. Her speech, she delivered the famous "Ain't I a Woman" speech. Think about this. So a woman, a Black woman in 1851, was a slave, escaped in 1851, and our U.S. Civil War started about 1863, gave a speech at a women's rights convention. And the speech was titled "Ain't I a Woman?" It blows me away. She was also the first Black woman to win a lawsuit against a white man, and it was to recover her son. So
Wow.
This woman is amazing. She had some guts. She just was fearless. She worked for a recruiter for the Union Army during the Civil War, which was like fantastic. That she's like, this is the way to do social justice. Let's work and get the people that are on this side of the war. Let's beef up the military there. And she spoke out against prison reform, property rights for women, and just suffrage as well, universal suffrage. So it's a fascinating woman. I know that I learned about her in my grade school, but the USBH always does a great job of their profiles as well. And this is where they give you a little bit more information. So in the auction, after the first slaveholder's death, she was sold to John Neely of Ulster County, New York. Not long after, she was sold to a fisherman, also Ulster County. And then about 1810, she was sold to John Dumont of New Platts in Ulster County. And she remained until she was free in 1828. So right there, we have 3 times this woman was owned by someone. It blows my mind. And
for 22 years.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. And she did not know how to read or write English, her first language, until 9. And she spun wool, kept house as a slave, and she had some guts. She put it out there, and that would be our feature profiles of the week. So again, if you are curious about the feature profiles, then go ahead and nominate. They love nominations. Not all are picked. And I think Anne asked, how are they picked? Or somebody asked, or maybe Tia asked how they're picked. I think it just takes a general idea and puts it up on the calendar. And I don't have the calendar handy, but feel free to suggest an idea. So if you have a topic or an idea, feel free to suggest it. Also, what will happen is Azure promotes a project of the month, or excuse me, of the week. And sometimes that project will have the featured profiles. Like last week was the Acadian project, and we had a lot of profiles from there. So this is this week on social media, the U.S. Black Heritage Project is highlighted, and that's how we came up with Sojourner Truth, which led us to Abraham Lincoln, which now I'm learning led us to also Wilberforce, who also fought for abolishing slaves. So that kind of talks about it as well. And next week for social media, moving right along, I do not think that we have it completely updated yet. So definitely, if you have not looked at, no, we do. Okay, so we have the Tech Talk. You guys definitely do not want to miss that. If you have any questions about tech or anything like that, go in and ask. Has everybody heard the rumor that I believe is coming true, that the new look of WikiTree is coming out very, very soon? So that one, ask your project leader for information on that. If you were on the Friday date night, not this past Friday, it was the Friday before, I think Julie gave a sneak peek of it as well. So I would say probably come March, you're going to see a new look of WikiTree. New fonts, new way of looking at WikiTree. I think the colors will be still mostly orange. So definitely look at that as well. And then every Tuesday, new list of feature profiles come out, the Saturday roundup, and Betsy has the news coming up. So if you happen to be new to WikiTree, then definitely check that out and ask any questions. That's the beauty of these live streams. Ask questions. You know, get involved. Don't be shy. Jump in with the tech talk. Jump in with the news. Hangouts. The hangouts are always fun when we have.
I usually watch this, even though I'm not new, but you always learn something. And everybody gets to a different functionality of WikiTree through different ways, different menus or whatever. So you always learn something from the experience of others.
And sometimes too, what's really good, I would say about the news and the tech. I was just going to say the tech, but after Vicky said that, I think the news and the tech. What's really good is, let's say that you're stuck and you're like, I really wish I could do this, or I really wish there was an easier way to do that. Join the news or join the tech and mention it, and they'll either, as Vicky said, they'll either show it to you and say, "Oh yeah, we got you covered," or they'll say, "That's a great idea," and you could be the reason we get a new feature request. You
Right.
never know. I think that pretty much wraps us up, does it, Vicky?
Yes, yes, it does. And the months went and flew. Now we have March for next week.
We have March, and for those of you that have not signed up for Roots Tech yet, there's the online. I can tell you, I took a sneak peek of the first day's calendar for the online classes that they're giving, and there were like 4 or 5 before noon. Then I'm like, oh, yes, I want to do that. I want to do that. So there's a lot of DNA this year. A lot of AI this year is being talked about. A lot of challenging research areas as well that are being talked about. And I will tell you all, sneak peek, that next Saturday will be the roundup as normal with Vicki, Greg, and Betsy. And then the next week will be from Roots Tech. So look forward to that. And we're going to try and do some fun things at Roots Tech throughout. I think the USBH project's going to do a live stream, and the Notables are going to do a live stream. So definitely sign up for Roots Tech online. It's free.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes, and you get to pick whatever you want to watch, and then you get a playlist.
That's what I like too.
Like a calendar.
And that makes it handy, because then you never forget what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys, I think that's it for the week. Have a great week. You will see Greg and Betsy and Vicki back next Saturday.
Next week.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sandy.